So you're split testing, but how do you know whether or not your test results are actually something that can be trusted and you're not being led down the wrong path? Hi, Justin Christensen here, the co-founder and president of Conversion Fanatics and the #1 best-selling author of Conversion Fanatic, How to Double Your Customer Sales and Profits with A/B Testing. Today, we're going to talk about how you need to trust your split test data. So it can be often frustrating if you're split testing and only to find out that the test results, which showed, let's say, a 30% improvement, wasn't actually a 30% improvement. So what do you do about it? The first thing is it all starts with the setup of the test. You need to make sure that everything is set up and tracking accordingly and that you're testing things across multiple devices and multiple browsers and looking at things holistically and not just that, hey, I want to change this button on my site to see how much of an impact it can have or what this test is going to show for a result. You need to start up with a good quality check on the front end, making sure that all of your goals are tracking, that everything is working the way it should be before you actually turn it live. The second step is you need to pass your information over to, say, something like Google Analytics or a secondary level of tracking, passing all the appropriate variables. So you make sure that you're understanding exactly where the visitors are coming from. It could be as easy as passing a test ID, a variation ID over into your CRM or something a bit more complex like that. So then when you move on from there, when you're actually looking at the data, it's important that you actually follow the data, not just set it, forget it, and check it in a week. You need to watch for trends. Look to see if, maybe a variation is pulling out to an early lead, or maybe it's not performing as well as you thought it should be, and maybe it's losing by a massive margin. You could have an error in there. And you need to that's where that quality check comes into play in the beginning. So when you're furthering along, when you're watching your data, you need to pay attention to how many visits you're getting on each variation, the number of conversions that are actually coming into the variation, and then on the top of that, you need to look at statistical significance, which most split testing software will calculate that for you. But the chances of you reaching significance on every single test are slim. Not every test is going to reach statistical significance. So that's why it's important that you pay attention to the number of visitors you have on your variation and the number of conversions. We typically look for, before we really start watching the data, is we look for 1,000 unique visitors per variation and at least 25 conversions per variation before we can really start determining what the next steps are. Of course, when possible, we try to run it to statistical significance of 95+%. But the reason why we run it to 25 conversions per variation minimum is because if you're looking at, say, 5 or 10 conversions, one single conversion can swing the results one way or another dramatically. So it's important to pay attention to that and make sure you have enough traffic to actually be testing, or you're just going to be wasting your time and spent weeks and weeks and weeks running a single test. So to recap is make sure that your test is set up and you spend the good portion of your heavy lifting on the actual test setup, making sure your quality checks are in place, that everything is working appropriately, that you're passing information to a secondary source to make sure that you're keeping tabs on it. And note that using JavaScript type split testing, there's always going to be a margin for error. And there's always going to be not a 100% equal match in the number of sales. So you need to really run that out to the number of conversions and make sure that it's statistically significant when you possibly can. So there you have it. In order to trust your data, just make sure you're quality checking everything on cross browsers, that you need to run enough traffic to each variation, that you have enough conversions on there, run to statistical significance when you can, and just really pay attention and watch your data over the course of the test rather than just waiting, setting, and forgetting it. So that's all I have for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, share, comment, and we'll see you guys on another one. Thanks.